Welcome to the next installment in the series of us unpacking what AI does. And today we are talking about an elephant shaped bubble in the room. For today, we'll be getting behind unpacking the shenanigans really that's being pushed behind this AI narrative that has had the economy on chokehold and all the narratives, mostly false, some of them true, that have been driving the conversations about AI. Now, my motivation for talking about this was in part motivated by a Substack post that I came across by a writer by the name of Noah Smith. And in this post, he outlines some of the signs that he believes signal the occurrence of a spending bubble. Remember, AI is a spending bubble, or at least I believe so, and many others like me believe so. And there are factors that determine a spending bubble and the reasons why a spending bubble is bad, and none of them are good. I've not come across reasons that can prove that a spending bubble is good. There are 4 indications that Noah Smith gives for that, and I will go through them with you today. And the first one is there is a widespread narrative of how the technology or the innovation is new, fresh, different, and life-changing this time. This is clearly evident when billionaires and unemployed tech pros are singing the same tune of how the technology, insert AI, will change everything, change the world. Number 2, there's a lot of debt being used to fund a single sector of the economy. Much of the debt is channeled into building unprofitable infrastructure, meaning that it is likely that the debt would not be paid back. In the current spending bubble on AI, this debt financing is manifesting itself in the form of the massive investment that's being put into AI data centers. Number 3, the spending occurs in an opaque corner of the financial system. The players in the section of the economy play a huge role in building an unregulated Wild West. In this case, we have private equity firms that are definitely the cowboys of this bubble, given the fact that they hold massive leverage by driving spending into AI technology. And number 4, the banks are in on it and they are actively pouring money into the lending pool because, of course, they are. Now, let's talk a little bit about those AI data centers. Basically, these are massive plants that house the computing resources which AI companies lease to run their AI models. As the demand for computing power has continued to increase, there has been demand for dedicated computing infrastructure for AI. Therefore, companies such as Oracle, Microsoft, and Amazon, who provide infrastructure in cloud computing and database management system, have shifted to becoming big players in AI since they possess the resources and capital that is necessary to keep the AI gold rush alive. Now, another big player is NVIDIA, who you probably know of. And NVIDIA provides the computer chips, which are basically mostly repurposed graphic processing units, GPUs, that have been adapted to run the computing for these AI models. Here is how it all comes together. AI speculation is crazy at the moment. Everyone and their grandmother is becoming aware of what the technology can do, and demand for AI has been up since ChatGPT came out in around 2022. The future is AI, they say. And since the technology is hotcake at the moment and its potential is huge, no one wishes to be locked out of it. Every company wants to be seen using AI as that improves investor confidence because, again, no one wants to put money in a company that does not invest in the future. History has evidence of how catastrophic missing the train on up-and-coming technologies that are meant to shape the future can be. Quite infamously, Nokia refused to ride the wave that was the touchscreen smartphone, which emerged when the first iPhone was released in 2007, and it paid dearly, going from being one of the world's largest cell phone manufacturers to a mostly forgotten brand with a memory preserved mostly only in internet lore and culture. However, for all the hype that has been placed on AI, the technology is far from reaching its true potential. As with the early established, there are a ton of inefficiencies that plague it that also prevent it from becoming fully applicable for use on a large scale. It would be expected that these AI companies would first take the time and improve the technology first, solving for the inefficiency problem. However, to take away from all the hype and attention, and more importantly, the buttloads of investment cash that these companies are receiving at the moment. Plus, who cares about making improvements? That doesn't sound flashy or attractive. So these companies did the exact opposite. They took the money and rode into the sunset. We just need some more training data, they said, and more powerful chips to make the technology even more effective. And the more they promised, more computing, more intelligence, higher performance scores, the more the investor money came pouring in, and the stock prices shot through the roof. At the moment, tech companies with huge stakes in AI are now some of the most valuable companies in the world. The top 6 list of the most valuable companies by market cap globally is made up of companies that are at the front of the AI wave. Talking about Nvidia, Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon, and Meta in that order. So, the money has been flowing and interest in AI is on the up. What could possibly go wrong? We've reached a pivotal point in the lifespan of the technology. The hype is now dying, and the people now want to see results. Yes, these AI companies have given a ton of promises on what the technology can do, but can it really do it? There's another big headache for these AI companies. Most of them have not found a way to monetize AI and turn it into a profitable business model. Take OpenAI, for example, the company behind ChatGPT, which has been making huge losses for the first half of 2025. It generated $4.3 billion US, a significant improvement from last year, but equally coupled with increased operational, research, and development costs that were up to the tune of $6.7 billion US. You would expect a company with more than 700 million active monthly users to have found a way to monetize this user base. But that's easier said than done. The vast majority of us, me included, don't pay for ChatGPT because we don't need to. The only reason why the technology became of interest to us was because it was made freely available. However, these AI models, ChatGPT and the like, consume a ton of resources and add costs to the company for even generating a single prompt. The costs increase even more for multimodal models that generate images and videos, such as Sora. For example, despite being free, Sora 2 places huge operational costs on OpenAI, and mark you, given the inefficiency of the technology, you'd need to prompt a ton of videos before getting one that's usable. Each and every one of those prompts adds to the costs, taking up even more computing power. Most of the creators who end up using this AI content, especially the images and videos, are small creators who don't necessarily make money directly from having these videos out. So again, little if any money is generated directly from the content that is being made using these AI models. The result is that we end up having an unending galore of content slop that adds little to no value and degrades the hard work of human creators whose content is often used, mostly, if not always, against their consent to train these AI models. AI technology is not only coming up short in the content side of things. 95% of companies that have implemented AI pilot programs are yet to see it make good and generate profitable returns. In fact, many companies that had laid off their staff to replace them with AI have been forced to rehire human workers, perhaps quickly realizing that we are still far off from having AI replacing humans. The macroeconomic reality is even harsher. The US economy, where these companies are based, is not doing well at the moment. GDP growth has been abysmal as Trump's tariffs have killed off much of the manufacturing sector. Many industries have ground to a halt, consumption has reduced, job growth has slumped, and there has been reduced investment into the non-AI part of the economy. A Financial Times article based on an MIT report found that the US economy only grew at an annualized rate of 0.6% for the first half of 2025, while not accounting for AI spending. Why, you ask? That's because 92% of GDP growth over that period came from AI spending, and 80% of gains in the stock market for 2025 so far have come from investment in AI. 20% of the S&P 500 index, which tracks the United States' most valuable companies, is dominated by 3 companies: NVIDIA, Microsoft, and Apple, 2 of which are basically big bets on AI. All this to say that all the money and hype into AI has been masking the growth slump in the US economy that is still reeling from the ramification caused by the tariffs, which are frankly a testament of weak macroeconomic policy by Trump's government. That has created an unbalanced market where too much money is being pumped into a single sector of the economy. In fact, a report by Deutsche Bank in September 2025 warned that the US economy may already have been in a recession and has only been propped up by AI spending. A lot of this AI money is channeled mostly through debt financing into building data centers, which house the computing power and infrastructure for AI. There is no guarantee that this will lead to an improvement in generative AI. Say OpenAI and the rest of these AI companies can't raise money to keep building these AI data centers. The reasonable outcome would be devaluation, and in a worst-case scenario, bankruptcy, which would not only wipe out the market valuation in AI, but also make it hard for these companies to gain access to cash to pay the initial debt that they had accrued to build the data centers. This would have been more obvious had OpenAI been publicly traded from the get-go in the first place. But OpenAI stock is currently held up in private equity and is controlled by companies such as Microsoft. But that could change next year as the company is reportedly planned to go public. Companies such as Meta, Amazon, and Microsoft, which are publicly traded and have built robust cash flow businesses, have been hemorrhaging money given their big bets on AI. For example, Oracle, a company that has for years built solid operational practices, loses about $100 million every quarter maintaining the data center that it's built to power these AI companies so far. Now, the only positive outcome on making good on this hype was if, by some inexplicable miracle, these AI companies actually started to generate cash flows from their endeavors. However, that would entail charging higher costs for accessing AI, which, to be frank, would push most users away. Alternatively, they could borrow Meta's and Google's tried and tested models of monetizing through advertising, which would make for a far worse user experience. And yet, even if this cash flow miracle happened, the companies would still need capital injections of up to $2 trillion to fund the computing power that AI would need by 2030. Even if all tech-related spending went into funding AI in its current form, these companies would still be short of about $800 billion. All this to say, the current AI technology we have now is not built for business. It's built for scaling and for getting attention. And as we've seen throughout history, the companies or long-term sustainability in an industry or in a technology only gets sustained if the technology finds a way to monetize itself and to make money back to the investors who invested into it. Chances are that's not going to happen anytime soon with AI. And now the writing is on the wall. The market is at the peak of inflated expectations as these AI models keep missing the mark on the promised technology. For example, think of the underwhelming outcome of ChatGPT 5's release, which was supposed to be the caveat into the world of AGI, artificial general intelligence. Reality will start to kick in, and the market will nosedive into the trough of disillusionment. We are approaching the point where interest in AI starts to wane as initial expectations clash with reality, leading to failed experiments, reduced investment, and a critical reassessment of its practical applications before it eventually enters into the plateau of productivity. This critical reassessment is what will allow us to unlock the true potential of what AI can do. But first, the hype needs to die, and the market needs a reset. Entire companies will be wiped out, and their valuations will dissipate into thin air. And luckily, we have an example in the recent past of this exact reoccurrence, the dot-com bubble. The dot-com bubble occurred in the late 1990s and early 2000s, where overconfidence overtook the market as companies and investors alike made big bets on the internet, predicting it to blow up and to be massively adopted by all. Money was thrown at any company that was online and had a .com to the name. That money went into building internet infrastructure such as data, fiber optic cables, of which 80 to 95% ended up being unused. Why? Because while demand existed, investors leveraged on it to make big bets on internet adoption, which led to an oversupply of resources and hence an inflated market. Eventually, the hype collapsed in on itself, and on March 20th, 2000, the bubble collapsed, wiping $3.6 trillion of market cap alongside it. The same exact pot is bubbling over, only that this time it's the adoption of AI technology that's being fueled, and the data centers are the new data optic infrastructure. And this time, the collapse could be worse, with up to $40 trillion of market cap going down with this. And the companies behind it know this. That's why they are pumping money as investment into each other to justify the abundance of supply. Recently, we saw NVIDIA, who is the main manufacturer of chips that are used to run the compute that many of these AI models use, especially OpenAI, announce a deal where they would invest $100 billion into OpenAI for the purchase of chips. Think of how absurd it is to have your biggest supplier as your biggest investor as well. Doesn't that scream loud like a red flag? Do red flags scream? I don't know. So the dot-com bubble needed to burst for the internet to evolve into the technological innovation that is used by the vast majority of humanity today. The same holds true for AI. For its true strength to be unleashed, the AI bubble needs to burst fast. It is not a matter of if, but when. Let's get the facts straight. I am by no means one of the many pessimists on an AI hate watch who are wishing and praying that the technology becomes an utter disaster. Personally, I am excited at the vast possibilities that AI unlocks for humanity. It hands us the tools to become a productive species in ways we've not even conceived as human beings yet. I use AI on a daily to help out with a lot of tasks, drafting emails, generating images and banners for marketing copy, and even in helping to write the script for this web series. However, I am of the opinion that there lies a fundamental problem with technology as it is at the moment. Tech billionaires and their AI companies have taken what is essentially a half-baked innovation, hyped up on its capabilities, and sold it off to millions of suspecting users. The current AI hype is only held up by it being a new technological novelty, which has no business being out in the open in its current undeveloped state. Because in its current undeveloped state, it only does more harm than good for humanity. At this rate, a great reset is needed. Only the companies who have taken the time to understand the technology and build businesses that add value using AI stand to profit and make the most out of it. In 2000, during the height of the dot-com bubble, a little-known startup known as Google was making waves in the tech industry. Google's way to the top of the tech world, to where it is today, was shadowed by industry giants such as American Online, now, or AOL. So, America Online, AOL, was one of the earliest, most widespread ways that people would use to access the internet. It had over 30 million paying, active monthly users who used the service to send and receive mail, as well as accessing instant messaging and news on the internet. Fast forward to more than 20 years, AOL is now a shadow of its former self, struggling to stay relevant in the internet-centered world it once pioneered. Google, on the other hand, has grown to become one of the biggest, most valuable companies globally. What changed? See, AOL did not adapt fast enough to evolve with a fast-moving internet landscape and cater to the emerging needs of its users. For example, the company was obstinate in switching over to broadband, the current internet setup that technology such as 4G and 5G use, which is faster with wide bandwidths that allow for fast data transmission, supporting multiple signals and multiple devices simultaneously. AOL stuck up on dial-up internet, a classic model where internet access is granted using a standard telephone line and a modem. Dial-up is now largely considered obsolete due to its low speed and instability compared to modern broadband connections. But even back then, dial-up internet was falling out of favor with many users, and many tech providers quickly moved over to broadband. But AOL didn't, or at least didn't do so fast enough. The result, when the vast majority of internet use moved over to broadband networks, AOL was left holding an empty bank. An overpriced merger with Time Warner in 2000 was made worse when the dot-com bubble burst a few months later and AOL stock tanked. Here are my final thoughts and submissions. Any technology, or tech company for that matter, that doesn't adapt to the needs of its human users sets itself up for obstinance. Human interest and consequent spending goes into where perceived value is derived. When this perceived value dies off, interest and, more frankly, spending goes away with it. Adaptability is a central element of any technological innovation, and not just adaptability to the needs of humanity. Let us not forget that all technology, AI included, is a tool for convenience for human needs. AI was made by humans to serve humanity. Therefore, it is up to the innovators behind AI to prove that the technology can truly serve the needs of humanity. Because with time, the hype bubble of perceived value will collapse and humanity will look elsewhere. Come to think of it, maybe we have gone full circle. Perhaps as the hype dies and chaos ensues, we will better appreciate our craving for authentic experiences. Right, so thank you so much for making it to the end of this segment. I appreciate you being here for this long. I hope you learned something, and feel free to share your thoughts about what you think about where AI is going. Do you think bubble is going to happen? The comment section is all yours. And as always, remember to subscribe and share this with somebody who you feel would learn from watching this. Yeah, and see you next time.